have the Sony A7R Mark II and the Sony A7S Mark II here with me. Now, I bought the Sony A7R Mark II the day it was released, and now I wonder, did I buy the right camera? In this video, I'm going to discuss the differences between these two cameras and hopefully help you decide which is right for you, and we'll finish with some additional context to help answer that opening question. My thinking when I produced my review of the A7R Mark II, which is linked right below, was you get this camera for when you want to shoot photos, but you also want to dabble in video. But dedicated videographers should wait for the A7S Mark II, as I thought it likely wouldn't have the potential for overheating that I did experience with this camera and have experienced more since that review. And it would also offer additional video features that videographers would appreciate. Well, I've been shooting with both of these cameras side by side for the last month, and I'm a bit surprised by some of the differences. Let's start with the least surprising. This A7S Mark II really has no peer, no real competition at the high ISOs. It's amazing. Really, the only thing that it competes with is the original A7S, and they are sharing the same sensor. So the differences between the two in low light performance is slight. There's some improvements in the Mark II. What was surprising to me was how well this 42 megapixel A7R Mark II holds up versus the A7S Mark II. On the video side, especially in Super 35 mode, until you get into those higher ISOs, 12,800 and up. And it's also true for photos. The Sony A7R Mark II ISO ranges from 50 to 102,000. Movie mode 100 to 25,600. The Sony A7S Mark II ISO ranges from 50 to 409,000. Movie mode from 100 to that same ridiculously high 409,000. The Sony A7R Mark II offers 399 focus points and phase detection. This allows for excellent focus, very good focus with Canon lenses via adapters, and decent focus tracking of moving subjects. The Sony A7S II offers 169 focus points and only contrast detection AF. It is not as fast and capable as the A7R, except in extreme low light. With Sony lenses, the A7S II beats the A7R II, focusing more reliably in extreme low light, like say during a wedding reception on the dance floor. For photos, the Sony A7R Mark II offers a 42 megapixel sensor, and the Sony A7S Mark II offers a 12 megapixel sensor. Now 12 megapixels seems low, especially when it's sitting side by side with the Sony A7R Mark II with 42 megapixels. I've captured some landscapes in stunning detail with the A7R Mark II, but in reality I've actually only made one print that took advantage of all of that resolution. The reality of using this camera to also shoot weddings, well, 42 megapixels is too big for weddings in my opinion, and although 12 megapixels seems on the low side, I look at what our couples print and the sizes they order, and truthfully 12 megapixels is fine. What would be really nice is a small and medium RAW setting on the A7R Mark II. On the video side, both offer 4K internally and that 5-axis image stabilization. The Sony A7R Mark II offers Super 35, which can give you better detail and less noise. The Sony A7S Mark II offers 120 frames per second at full HD, that's 1080. You only have 120 frames per second on the A7R Mark II when shooting at 720. Note that this is a 2x crop when shooting at 120 frames at 1080, but it does look really nice. Sony A7S Mark II also offers SLog 2 and 3. 3 being different from the A7R Mark II, potentially providing more dynamic range for your video if you know how to grade it. It also offers Gamma Assist for a nicer preview of your results when you're shooting in those SLog formats. We've been very happy with SLog 2, which is offered on both of the cameras. In simple terms, this SLog format, it's more RAW-like video. While the footage isn't truly raw, it does allow for capture of greater dynamic range and responds really well to post-processing or grading. So those are the main differences, and it isn't really as easy as saying, oh, get the A7S for video and the A7R for photos. Both offer strong and compelling reasons for photo and video. It's easier to say, get the A7S for exceptional low light quality, including focusing abilities, and get that A7R for massive megapixels, but that is somewhat ignoring the fact that the A7R also does very well at high ISOs, especially compared to other cameras in its class. And about that overheating issue, I've had my A7R Mark II overheat now a few times. These are longer clips I'm recording, and I recognize not everyone shoots that way. It's frustrating. I've talked to Sony about this, and while they don't acknowledge that there really is an issue, the reps I talked to said that this camera, both of these cameras, can easily record for 20-minute stretches with a 1-minute cooldown in between. And I was told that the interior architecture is identical for both. So while I haven't made the A7S Mark II overheat, I have seen the temperature warning, so I suspect in some situations it too could overheat and shut down. If you need to record for longer periods of time, you should pick up an external recorder or a different camera. Bottom line, the files, photos, and videos from these two cameras is fantastic, and while I don't love the control scheme and I don't love the menu system, I am willing to suffer through that for the results. But which one is better for me, or phrased in my opening question, would the Sony A7S be a better camera to shoot with at weddings than the A7R Mark II? Yes, it would. But because I still own a pile of Canon lenses and I need that better focusing when I'm using Canon lenses, and the capabilities that the A7R Mark II provides with that phase detection system, along with shooting enough travel and landscape photography that 42 megapixels is useful, I'm going to stick with this camera. So while I would love to use the A7S Mark II for the low light reception wedding work, especially paired with something as wonderful as the Sony 55mm f1.8, I will continue to use the A7R Mark II. I'd love to know which one appeals to you and why. Leave a comment below and click on through my blog, which has all the info laid out that we just covered, and the camera Sony recommended me if I wanted to record internally for longer than 10-20 minutes at a time. Give you a hint, it's not cheap. If you found this video helpful, take a moment to press the thumbs up button and subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram for more behind the scenes. Thanks for watching.